Hello and welcome to Sewist Online Pattern Design software channel. In the previous lessons we learned to place points on the screen, using the functions point, apply, meet, intercept, and compass. We also learned how to draft lines and arcs, and refer to their properties. In this lesson we talk about curves. In Sewist software, curve is drafted similar to Bezier cubic curve. To create a curve, we need two reference points. I created points P1 and P2, using the function point. Now we can draft the first curve. The minimal syntax of this function is as follows. The word curve, brackets open, starting point, end point, angle at the starting point, angle at the end point, brackets close. Let us look at the angles in more detail. Unlike arc, curve has two control points, and not one. This allows you to create a wider range of shapes. You can see the control points on the screen, but you cannot click and drag them, as the angles are defined within the function, and are often calculated using math formulas. The curve departs from the first point in the direction of the first control point. Then it bends to arrive at the second point from the direction of the second control point. The angles between this thin control line and 0 degrees is actually angle 1 and angle 2 of the curve. Angle 1 is next to point 1, and angle 2 is next to point 2. Both are calculated clockwise compared to the 0-degree line, that is to the right. The default slope of the curve is similar to that of a French curve template. You can actually create less and more bended curves. This is defined by coefficients. The default coefficient is 1. You can omit it in syntax, as we did before, or write in the code. If you would like to create a more bowed curve, increase the coefficient. As you can see, I have decided to give a specific name to my curve this time. For curve 1, I have set coefficient to 2, so it will be more bowed. If a name of a curve is not mentioned, the system will generate it automatically as follows. C, underscore, name of the first point, underscore, name of the second point. If you hover a curve, you will see a small pop-over window that lists the name of the curve. For our first curve, the name has been created automatically, and it is C, underscore, P1, underscore, P2. In this pop-over window you can also see the length, the coordinates of the first and the second point, in centimeters, and the first and the second angle in degrees. The curve is highlighted in yellow. Its first point is highlighted in violet, and its last point is highlighted in orange. Here's the info about curve 1. It is much more bowed, and its length is 45.5, while the first curve was some 39 centimeters long. The control points of both curves are in the same direction. However, for the second curve they are twice as far from the end point. This is what coefficient is responsible for. It helps you to place the control points closer or further. If only one coefficient is mentioned, it works for both ends of the curves, so the control points of curve 1 at both ends are twice as far. To create a less bowed curve, you need to use a coefficient that is less than 1, but more than 0. It should be a positive value in any case. For the next curve, curve 2, I am going to use coefficient of 0.5. The new curve is less bowed, and its control points are twice as close, compared to the first curve. To provide even more freedom in design options, Sewist software lets you use both coefficients of a curve. For example, you can set one of coefficients to 0.5, and the other one to 2. The curve will be slightly bowed at the start, and very bowed at the end. Think necklines, or armholes. I shall comment curve 1 and curve 2, so that there are less objects in the screen. The commented lines are not executed by the software. They are handy when you want to experiment with several variants, and don't want to bother with deleting, copying and pasting code. We now have only the original curve and the last curve in the screen. Curve 3 is slightly bowed at the beginning, as the first coefficient is just 0.5. It is very bowed at the end, as the second coefficient is 2. You can use various properties of a curve in Sewist software. We have already mentioned points, angles, length. You can refer to them by writing the name of the curve and adding a property to it. In the popover window you can see these main properties, and all numbers are rounded to the second decimal. If you'd like to see them with the utmost precision, you can use the info command to display further info in console. Unlike line and arc, a curve has coefficients. You can refer to them by using the properties point C1 and point C2. Other properties of the curve are as follows. Point x1 is the x-coordinate of the first point, and point y1 is the y-coordinate of the first point. Point x2 is the x-coordinate of the second point, and point y2 is the y-coordinate of the second point. And then there is also delta x and delta y, the difference of x or y coordinates, correspondingly, of the endpoints of the curve. Always a positive value. That's a lot, isn't it? Don't panic. The additional properties are used rarely in drafting. In most cases you will need the main ones, the length, the points, and the angles. Let us draft a new curve, referring to the properties of the existing curve. I commented all curves but the original one, and redrafted the pattern. The new curve will have the name curve 4. And I'll draft it from the second point of the original curve to the first point. The opposite direction. I am too lazy to type in the name, so I double-click the original curve and its name is inserted into my code. At point P2, I want my new curve to depart in the opposite direction. So I add 180 degrees to the second angle of my original curve. At point P1, I want the new curve to be directed in the same direction. So I simply mention the first angle of the original curve here, point A1. I'll set coefficient to 2, so that the curve is more bowed. If you need to move a grid, simply click, hold and drag. You can see how seamless the transition is between two curves at point P2, and how the curves are directed in exactly the same direction here, at point P1. I hope you enjoyed this short video about Sewist Online Pattern Making software. If you have any questions, you are welcome to ask them in comments to this video, or in our forum at www.sewist.com. We also encourage you to follow us on YouTube, Instagram and Facebook. Happy sewing!